everything will go wrong. All right, I'm recording. Thank you, Mikey. Let's go on. But as I said, I have this urge to explore how do we connect the physical world, the tactility, the touching, to all the not touching, because we might kill each other, or maybe we wouldn't. But anyway, there's suddenly a distance. But at the same time, a lot of the fun, a lot of the play, and also from a design perspective, revolves around actually touching and tactility and getting some kind of tactile feedback. And I don't know how to do it. I haven't really found the solution. So I just thought this would be an opportunity to play around with it and to see how do we create shared experiences with tactility when we can't touch the same things for a lot of reasons, also because we're scattered all around the world. And I think I don't really want to be sharing. I actually have slides and such, but it's not interesting. I'd rather be looking at you. And if I sometimes sort of zone out, it's because I have another screen over here with the participants admitting to get in and such. So I'll just do a brief introduction, talk a little bit about why am I interested in this touching thing, and then for the remainder of the session we'll be touching stuff and hopefully telling some stories that emerge out of whatever we will be touching. And of course, we're not going to be touching the same things, but hopefully we can create some shared experience of touch. That's really the goal here. One of, like, quite early on, of course, I realized that these would be months, and these have indeed been months, where a lot of our work, a lot of our meetings, a lot of our interactions have been exactly like this, sitting here. I don't know if you know him, but there's this English guy who had, I think it's still maybe the most watched TED Talk, Ken Robinson. And one of the things that he says in this, and he also elaborates on that in one of his books called Out of Our Minds or something like that, is that in essence, our bodies are sort of vessels for our heads. So all they do, our bodies are there because they transport our heads to the meetings. So that's all they are, and of course he's exaggerating, but quite often it's all too true. And at least for me, even working at a design school and working with playful people, a lot of the meetings are just people sitting around the table and having some sort of agenda and going through that. And we completely forget that, all right, maybe the rest of us would also have some kind of contribution to make. And if that was true before, that our bodies are basically vessels for transporting our heads to meetings, then it seems like it's even more true when we're just sitting here in front of the screen, because now we don't even have to be transported to the meeting. And we don't even have to change from one meeting onto the next, maybe just a different Zoom room. So it's even more pressing to figure out how do we involve the body and the senses and the touching and all of that. So that's what we're going to try to do. And I have two perspectives on this. I talk about play and I talk about play design. And I probably know more about play than I know about play design, but I'm sort of working with both and trying to understand both. What does it mean to play? What does play mean? And what does it mean to design for play, and how do we do that? So when we play, I think we often touch each other. We just had a panel earlier today that was where we also had this discussion about physical active play, contact play, where we touch each other. And then of course there are a lot of forms where we don't want to touch each other, and sometimes we feel uncomfortable touching too much and getting too close and all of that. But there will probably still be some kind of touching. Also in a metaphorical sense, if play is deep and meaningful, we touch each other. And we touch objects, like all the time. If we Bart is here, if we want to blow soap bubbles, we touch something. And if we blow soap bubbles, then there will be someone who will start touching the bubbles, because that's also interesting. And so, like, all kinds of strange touching going on. I have lots of weird materials that when I touch these, it's just bright beams, and then I put them in this because it would probably make the experience different. What happens? You know, how does it invite play in different ways? All this touching the world. So something is going on with Bart there. So I think play is, I'm not going to do a very big sort of talk on play, but one of the things that we do when we play is that we go exploring what is possible, like what might be possible for our bodies. There can be sort of inhibitions, challenges. We can all do different things with our bodies, but it's always interesting to go pushing that a little bit, like what might be possible, or what might be permitted in a certain context. We often feel sort of inhibited by expectations and all of that. So pushing that idea of what can we do, what can our bodies do, what can we do with the object that we meet, can itself be a catalyst for play and really get us to playing. And of course we have toys, but we also have all kinds of other objects. Like there's always the idea of, you know, a stick can be a million things as soon as we start playing with it. So objects and toys and touching is kind of fundamental to a lot of play. Yeah, I actually don't remember what it's called, the thing that you're doing with the hands, Milka?
Cat's cradle. Yeah, I saw it from Marie, that's why I'm doing it.
Yes, true. I'm not sure I'm able to do it. I think there was actually also a workshop at Counterplay last year where people were doing this. And I saw recently, I had a workshop on something else, and there was some string. I have this box full of stuff, and there was some string, and like touching the string, two women started doing that, and they were kind of surprised. They were like, that was not what I intended to do, but once I got the string in my hands, that's what the string sort of told me to do, because I was reminded that I was doing this. And then muscle memory and all of that just kicked in, and they started doing it. Like they hadn't really stopped doing it for 30 years. So wonderful that you're doing that. And let's see examples of touching while we go along here. So that's kind of the one track that we're going down, and that I'm always curious about, like how is play catalyzed and inspired by touching. And then the other one is designing for play and play design. And design in general, of course, is very, very often about touching, because we sort of have to give shape to something, and we have to figure out, like, what happens when we play around with this? What happens when we push it? What happens when we combine different materials, different textures, something that's hard with something that's soft? All of that is a very big part of a lot of design processes, and maybe even more so when we talk about play. All right, I'll just admit some more people in here. So yeah, this sort of notion of tactile feedback in the design process is quite central as well, giving shape to possible play experiences. So how do these materials invite us to design for play in certain ways? What are the experiences that we feel that they're telling us about, or they're inviting us to go explore? And I think that's what we're going into. I'm not going to talk a lot more about neither play nor design at this point. Just sort of reiterate that touching and tactility and using our senses and getting out of that head that's otherwise going to all the meetings is important for play and important for play design. And now I think we'll go experiment a little bit. So from here on, we'll be touching stuff. And to begin with, I will just give you some prompts, or some sort of, you have to go touch this and then bring it back. And I haven't completely thought this whole thing through, because I didn't know how many people would be, or all of that. So we're gonna see how it goes, basically. But to begin with, I'll just tell you to fetch something, go touch something with a certain characteristic, and bring it back and hold it up to the screen, and we'll just talk a little bit about it, and then move on to the next thing. And it can be anything. You can go find whatever sort of adheres to the quality. All right, are you ready for that? We'll just do it like no running is needed, but if you feel like really having exercise out of this session, it's okay. Running is fine. So we'll begin, and I just tell you to touch something and then bring it back, something that's soft. So go find something that's soft. All right, so we still have, and of course, if you, some of you don't have your camera on, that's perfectly fine. Of course, you can participate in this any way you like. Let's see what you have that's soft. Of course, I just picked one of the animals. This one is soft and sort of actually good for talking about giving shape to stuff, because the disco penguin will take most shapes. Any of you want to share just a little bit? So again, this is also, it's about touching and exploring touch, but it's also about then connecting that experience of touching to being in this space together. Any of you will try to describe just briefly, what are you touching and how does it feel?
When you?
Someone, will someone say something?
Okay, I'm touching my daughter's teddy bears. Okay, they feel soft, but I also feel kind of a little bit of cold electricity in my hands because they were in a cold place. And then for me, it's not just this, because it's like this kind of memory of soft is also reminding me of air. So it's connecting to another level.
Yeah, so it's soft, but it also has a lot of other meaning attached to it. And is that meaning like present, more present when you touch it? Because you could probably also have just watched it. Is there a difference there? And I don't know, I'm just curious. Is the memory or the sort of the feelings more present because you touch them and also hold them close to your head?
No, the holding close, no, I don't think so. But the touching, yes, but it's also because I touch and squeeze her, so it's connected.
Yes, yeah, okay. Is anyone, this is sort of free form and I'm improvising as we go along. If any of you want to say something about touching something soft, you can do that. And otherwise we'll jump on to the next thing. All right, we'll move on. But this is really just a sort of a collective journey into understanding touch and tactility, and then how do you create a shared sense of this, which I'm pretty sure that if we had been together, like we would be touching all the same things, and we would probably also be touching each other a little bit, and it would be a little bit more obvious to us what does these different means of touching mean. Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the next one. I think we'll just, I had another easy one here. The soft one was easy, and I also had another one that's easy, something that's hard, but we're not going to go with that because you're far more skilled than just going for the easy thing. So we go to the next level. The next thing I will ask you to find is something that has a sort of a porosity, like you feel it would break if you dropped it on a hard floor. Okay, something that you feel would break if you dropped it on a hard floor, and don't do that, of course.
Cosa di fragile, Valentina?
Yes, some kind of fragility that will, it might break. All right, I think
I was. Ok, fragile. Cosa ho di fragile qui?
Okay, so we have different kinds of more or less fragile objects. I have a strawberry shaped vase here, which I'm pretty sure would break if I dropped it. Someone who wants to say something about this? How does it feel? This maybe fragile, it might break. Like, what does it mean? Does it sort of tell you anything or bring you a certain mood or something like that?
Hey, I'm realizing that I'm much more cautious when I'm playing with this, considering that of the elephant.
Mm. Can you, just to be sure, can you just say what it is? Like, what is it that you're holding in your
This
hand?
is a glass box,
Yes.
and it's very thin and it's very fragile. And right now I'm aware that I can let that down and it might get broken or something like that. So I'm very cautious of my movements and how I'm touching it, how I'm squeezing it, how I'm holding it.
Yes. So something has changed. It's also interesting to compare with the previous object, where you had no sense of this might break, or you were less cautious. Yeah. Anyone else has something that might break that they want to say a word or two about? You have lots of wonderful things that might break.
This is a very cold. It's can also make interesting noises.
Yes.
A lampshade.
Yeah.
Whilst this, I enjoyed the thing that this bounced back. It had a bounce back, like,
yes.
You know, and this is so fixed, so it's like a bit frustrating. but also interesting, like for noises, whereas this doesn't have noises.
No, not really. You can scratch things probably and
yes.
create.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I think we'll move on. Of course, you can keep your objects around you. I think in a way we're maybe making an installation of various objects. So the next thing that I would want you to get, and of course, if there are some of these objects that you for various reasons don't have or would have to travel far to get, then just ignore what I say. The next one is, I wouldn't say it's about connecting us to nature, but try to find something that's green, organic, sort of a plant or cucumber, if that's what you have, but something from nature.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah. So I've got this hanging pot here with. Apparently, this is one of the plants that's really easy to keep alive, and it spreads. So we just get more and more of these plants, and I like touching the leaves. There's really something about touching a leaf that I'm not exactly sure what it does. All right. So what other parts of plants or organic things have you found? Something who want to say something about it?
8 baby cactuses.
8 baby cactuses.
Yeah, you can hardly see them, but there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one.
So you're growing your own baby cactuses?
Yeah, they're this tiny at the moment.
So,
I'm gonna put it down because it's quite heavy.
so can you actually touch the baby cactuses? Or are they still almost in the ground? All right, she left with her baby cacti or cactuses. Or another plant, Marie?
I found this flower in the garden, and I think a noticeable thing is suddenly there's a smell to it, which there wasn't to, like the other things. No. So it's a new sense I can use.
Yes.
Organic thing.
Does that sort of, what kind of immediate impact do you think it has? Does it create some kind of meaning or memory or thought or?
Of course, memory, because they were in my children's garden as well.
Yes.
Bringing me back. Yeah. But also the color. You love it,
Yes,
right?
it's a
Get happy.
beautiful color. Yes. Happiness, colors, memories, smells, lots of things going on here. Okay. Anyone else want to say anything about the plants?
Yes, me. Oops.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
The banana peel, and it's happening very much when I touch banana peels. I'm thinking, where do they come from?
Mm.
And the road that they made, and how many people touch them. And I think of Panama and Costa Rica and all the road they made on containers. And I feel like stopping to eat bananas, but my family likes them.
Yeah, that's true. That's really a lot of story, but also a lot of sort of complicated political issues and sustainability and all kinds of things in a banana peel. Great, thank you. Wonderful. You're really doing great. I think we'll just do one or two more and then step on to the next thing that I have planned here. I think we will go with something that's fluid. So bring back something that's fluid. Yeah, a glass of water, or anything that's a fluid.
A liquid.
A liquid, yes.
Okay.
But of course, that's almost too obvious.
My computer doesn't like them.
No. I have decided to ignore that and just keep doing it anyway. All right, we'll just give people a second. So I found glitter glue, which is, it's thick, but it's still sort of fluid. And you know, glitter glue, who doesn't like that? Anyone else want to, what are you sharing? What is the liquid that you're holding? Anyone want to say a word?
I got a shower gel from the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry you can't see it, but it is inside. It smells very nice. It's the only thing that has a very strong smell from all of the things I've picked.
Yeah. So another one where there's some smell, that's maybe one of the sort of important characteristics or impulses that you get from the material. Yes.
I have this rakia from Croatia.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great after lunch. It's got a really nice smell. Yeah, it's good.
Like a free bar in this meeting. Anything you want to drink while it's going on, go ahead.
I have some beer. I'll join you in that, Danny.
Yeah, great.
I'm sorry.
Rakia is strong. You.
I know.
I wouldn't drink this.
Have any of you touched the liquid or the fluid?
This gel, antibacterial gel.
Oh, yes.
I'm really intrigued by your antibac gel because my antibac gel is quite runny, and I'm intrigued to see if your antibac gel is different. But mine's is sitting somewhere between being goop and being water, so it runs quite fast down my arm, but it also gets stuck, and it smells disgusting. It smells like really, really cheap vodka. How runny is yours, Francesco?
How
runny is it? How easy does it pour? Pretty runny.
Looks kind of similar. I think actually the ones that we have are pretty, the fluid is pretty thick, so it's quite, it's more like a lotion or something. All right.
Can I say something about my laundry?
Yes.
Laundry. It smells lovely, so it reminds me of summer, and when the laundry dries in the sun and you're a child and you run between. But then also it reminds me of housework, so it's mixed feelings. It's not always yay, it's mostly again So yeah.
That's a double-edged sword there, if
Yes.
I ever saw one. All right, I think we'll go with the memories then, for now at least. All right, we'll do the last random object, and then we'll go on to the next thing. But this I just sort of really want you to do. I had actually a lot more, but there's something else we have to do. But this one is you have to find an object that is appealing. So because of its texture, like try to just touch stuff that's around you. Maybe you know already, but something that is appealing, something that speaks to you because of its tactility. Okay?
Qualcosa che ti colpisce per la sua speaks to you. Speaks to you.
You wanted to know.
All right, so we have lots of appealing things here. It's great. Few people have not come back with their appealing object yet. Some of you are doing workout with the appealing object. Other interesting things going on. So I actually have, my desk is full of sort of more or less appealing, and the cord and something is going on here. I have so many appealing, weird things around this room here, but I chose the beeswax. I find that incredibly appealing. It's soft and the smell is like of honey, and yeah. Anyone else found something really appealing that they want to share with the group, and why is it appealing to touch or to rub against your skin or whatever?
Well, this thing was looking at me from the beginning of this festival, actually, because it's behind my computer.
Mm-hmm.
And finally I got the chance to touch it, and it's nice to play with. It's always moving, never stuck. You can always do something with it, and that's feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. I just because I was looking at the gallery view, so now I'm zooming in on your thing there, Bart. It's true. There's something about things that has some kind of flexibility to them, like things that are maybe a little ambiguous, like what can this be? I think there's something about that object you have there, Bart. It invokes some kind of wonder and curiosity. What's going on with this little weird thing that's standing behind my computer?
Yeah.
Any other appealing object that some of you want to describe?
Well, that's I don't know what you call it, but I saw it at a sports shop. Maybe because it's red as well, and it's got, you know, this little bumps on it. It's soft, but it's also hard because inside there's like a very hard plastic tube. And on the outside, though, it's soft. So if you squeeze it, it, you know, kind of goes in. So yeah, I just thought it was, you know, very curious. I said, what's that? I was in the shop with my brother. He's like, let me get it for you. So he just, you know, got it in and he bought it for me. So it's great to massage your back. So if you lie on the floor, you just roll on it. And what I love to do is like also roll like this. It massages your feet. I love it. So I've been using it like, you know, the whole time. I didn't know what it was. And I'm so glad that my brother was so instinctive. He said, yeah, I'm just getting it for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the best presents ever.
That's brilliant. And you still don't know what it is?
I checked. It's well, people use it for some workouts, but I think they use it in a very boring way.
Yeah.
Just, for muscles and stuff. I'll keep on using it the way I'm using it, I think.
Yeah. I think we actually also have one
and
of
say
these.
goodbye, to a six-pack on my abs.
That's great. A lot of a lot of different things happening there. Like I love the thing that it just spoke to you in the shop, even though like you had no idea what's going on here, but it's interesting. And of course, then also the spontaneity of your brother just buying it. But it says something about how we attract to different kinds of shapes and materials and such. Thank you. Wonderful. I think unless some of you really just want to say something, we'll move on a little bit with the next thing that might be a little bit challenging, and I really don't know exactly how it's going to work. But the thing that we often do at the design school where I work, but also at when we do the Counterplay Play Festival and other festivals, is that we build stuff. We build small models, or we build landscapes, or we build prototypes, or we build whatever. We build all kinds of things, and to me, definitely one part of playing is also the part of playing with materials to put them together in funny ways. We recently moved, so we're still living in the middle sort of a construction site. And while I don't really have a lot of skills, I find it extremely interesting to build stuff and put things together. And I would really like to try to do just a little bit of that with you guys. And I have no idea how possible it will be. But the thing that I would ask you, if we had been in the same room, I would know, we have these materials, we have scissors and glue and tape and paper and wooden sticks and all kinds of stuff, we would have that. And obviously we don't. But I would still like to ask you to spend, let's say we may have 10 minutes or so, finding objects that you would like to put together. So what I would like you to do is think of a sort of a story you want to tell, or a scene that's playing out in your mind, some play experience you want to share with people, or some play experience you have experienced during this festival. So it's all about telling a small story about a play memory or a play experience. It can be something you've tried, or just something that's sort of in your head that you would like to try. So a small scenario or a small story. And if you want to, you can like actually glue together the things. I think I'll do that. But you can also just put together a few different objects that you can use to tell this story. Does all of this make sense? Okay. So what I would like to do, because again, this is about trying to connect our experiences of having the fingers into the materials and sort of the tactility and such. So if you can in some way try to direct the camera towards what your hands are doing. So if you can just sort of angle, if it's your computer, if you can angle it a bit, or if it's, I have this webcam that I can move around and then almost break this thing that would break. And I often, it's a little bit, but if you can direct the camera towards the materials that you'll be working with, that would be wonderful. And we can also have, because we would have done that if we had been in the same space, we would have a conversation while we were doing it. So I'm thinking that might be a little bit chaotic, but let's just try it out. So spend a few minutes finding some object that you would like to put together, either actually putting them together with glue or tape or whatever, or just putting them in a scenario, and then direct your camera to that and start sort of creating some kind of little story around it. Okay?
Che vuoi mettere insieme per insieme e mi schiacciano e seat, so I'm not really comfort. There is a lot of vedo come fare. Ma loro stanno lavorando.
So I've got some trouble here with this. I've got some Lego tape kind of thing that I want to attach, but I can't really peel it off. Any other immediate experiences you're having with the materials that you're finding?
I'm trying to make an installation of the things we have been used during.
Yes,
this
that's
place
perfect.
find another.
Yeah.
The last one I went through as well, we had to find things. So a lot of different strange things are gathering. What kind of story could I make of these?
That's brilliant. All right, I'm gonna give up on this and do something else.
So what are you making?
Is that a question for me or for the group?
Is a generic question to anybody that feels like answering.
I'm very glad you asked that question, and I hope that someone will feel like answering.
Well, I can give it. I can say something about my construction. I have got I wanted to make a tower with my pencils, but they didn't stay upright because they were too slippery. And then I find out I could make make them dance together. It's like two stiff legs, but now I've bound them together so I can almost use it with one finger to make a dance drawing on my paper.
That's absolutely great, Bart. Dance drawing. So whenever I do these things, I'm always, and I have also not planned for this, even though of course I have planned this session, I'm always completely improvising, and I have no idea where I'll end up, because I just think that it's so much fun to explore the materials and put them together and glue stuff and allow my fingers to sort of make the decisions as much as possible.
Yes, I like the idea of making your body
So now I'm gluing these plastic beads with the glitter glue to a piece of foam for no good reason, I think.
You know, I loved that you said that who doesn't like a glitter glue, because I'm crazy for glitter glue and my partner hates it. Like he says we're making a mess all over the house. It's very hard to clean it.
How can he look at something like this and hate it? I don't understand.
He's the one doing the cleaning.
Oh, that's why. We also, sorry?
So I was going to say, people who don't like glitter, they say things like, oh, but it's so hard to get rid of and everything will be covered in glitter. And you're standing there thinking, but why wouldn't you want everything to be covered in glitter?
Yes, exactly. So what's the problem here?
You know, here in Australia, in festivals, probably also in Europe, I don't know, but they're selling like this ecological glitter that doesn't get into the water of the sea and is super natural and not polluting, and is crazy expensive.
Yeah, of course, that's always a bit of an issue. We have always when we do the counterplay festival, we've had for the past couple of years these sort of confetti, whatever tubes, or you turn them and then they spray confetti all over the place, and it's always wonderful and amazing. And then we also have this discussion about why do you like confetti so much, Matthias, and why do we always need to have it? Because it's a mess tidying it up afterwards. And well, they're right, of course, but I think the cost benefit of having confetti is just making it a win in the end, even though it takes a bit of extra work. All right. So I think time is actually really flying here. And we should probably do a little bit of summing up, a little bit of reflecting on. So what's been going on here? I think it's wonderful to see you working. And even though, of course, it's a different experience from us having been in the same room in Italy. If we had gone to the festival in the old-fashioned way, we would have been in the same room. We would have been touching some of the same objects. But at least I still get some sense of what's going on with your hands and your materials. So I'm completely encouraged to keep on these experiments just because of that. Have any of you got a small story to tell or some impressions from working with these while being in this online space? Any thoughts on the whole thing, or a short story?
A short story about what we made, or
Yeah.
about the whole experience?
If you have a short story about what you've made, I'd love to hear that.
Right, okay. Yeah, I made the beach, actually, just using whatever I had here in this room and some of the objects that we use today in your session or in other sessions as well, because there has been, a lot of object play, whatever, during this few days. So I'm like full. I mean, my house is always full of stuff here and there, but now it's concentrated here in the living room, which is usually quite free to dance and play music.
Yeah.
So I've accumulated a lot of objects. So yeah, this is the beach, and I've actually used quite a few things that I gathered from the beach to make a small beach here. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else just want to share, like, what have you created?
Hi, I also created a beach. This is my sea.
Yeah.
And I really like elephants, as you can see. And these are the elephants enjoying the beach.
Me too.
He is he's swimming, and these guys are playing, and these are the rocks on the beach, and this is my colorful sea.
Brilliant. Thank you. All right. I think we could have one more if someone wants to share. Otherwise, of course, you're also very welcome to put your small story in the chat. Someone else wants to share something that they have made. We also already heard from you, Bart, with the dancing pencils.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what it created.
It's an artist.
This is an artist, yes.
Yeah. Was someone else saying something?
So I was in this play Zoom with Anthony, and we did this improv about making a tea in the style of somebody, and there were some kids in the class and in the workshop, and they were making the tea in a posh style or in another style, and it was a beautiful experience. So I made a cup of tea. And then he made a joke about why to make the tea every day in the same way. I'm sure you're not going to look at it in the same way now. And I really like the concept. So.
Yes, I actually at some point made like some of us have these friends called a secret club, and they asked us to make a ritual or turn something into a ritual. And I think that's also what you've been working on with the tea. And I created a ritual around making coffee, and it got really silly in the end. And it does sort of change your perspective on the making of coffee or the making of tea.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing you have created there.
I'd added to my mask that I started making from an egg box, actually, which is from these things. These things can also be cool ways to look at the world, maybe. So that's what this festival kind of inspired me again, to look differently at the world. So
Yeah.
I don't have a story, but anyway, that's what I tried.
Not required. I'm also just really interested, of course, to hear what happened during this process. What sort of came up? Was it sort of a specific kind of object or material that inspired you to move in a certain direction? So it's really, really great to hear all your different perspectives on this. Yeah. Anything else you want to share? Otherwise, I think we're also slowly getting to the end of the time here. There's one thing that I want to ask, and that's because Maike, you're here, and Maike and I just had a really nice conversation in her writing philosopher. I don't know what we call it, space, now that it's online. But one of the words that we talked about was devotion. And I think the link between play and devotion is a really interesting one. I think that I argued, I was saying a lot of more or less nonsensical things, but one of the things that I argued was that I think that we need devotion, like we need to be able to devote ourselves to the play experience, to really get deep into that. Do you have any thoughts on devotion, this online space, and then sort of connecting to the materials and the physical things and the beings or whatever? Like, can it help us reach that state of devotion in the play experience? It's a difficult question, I know. It's just a thing that I'm thinking about.
Mean by devotion, do you mean like a practice, like you devote, let's say, a time of your day to play? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm more talking about like being devoted to the experience, being devoted to playing. So I'm not just sort of, going along with something, sort of pretending to play, but I'm devoting myself to this and just really jumping in, being present, being open, and sort of really being dedicated to the play experience. And I think one of the challenges we often have is getting to that. Like when we run play experiences, play sessions, play events, how do we avoid just staying on the surface of play and actually devoting ourselves to dive deep into that? And then I'm quite interested in what can we do with our bodies and physical objects and tactility and such to maybe help that along. Yes.
For me, the tactile aspect of play is most important, It's when I'm unable to be totally present, totally focused, totally devoted. It's the textures that bring me into it and make me very, very centered around the play and really involved in the play. So without textures, it can be quite difficult to play. So I think that the sharing of textures and the describing of textures, and also the things that other people were doing, the smelling and maybe even the tasting of textures as well, adding to it. I think it definitely helps. This has helped.
Brilliant. That's so interesting to hear, and I agree. Of course, I think it can be really hard if we are just in our heads, you know, and just sitting here and not really allowed to do anything else. But as soon as we get stuff, and maybe especially, at least for me, things that a lot of you have brought are stuff that's sort of ambiguous. Like it's not entirely clear what we can do with it. I think what they call in play work loose parts, stuff that sort of can become a lot of different things, and the meaning is not too fixed from the beginning. That really also helps spark ideas and imagination, and oh, I can do all of this. And you know, if I hadn't thought about it, I could just have continued building this scene here, which I have no idea what might be, but for an hour or something like that, because oh, and then and the next, and yeah, all of that. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this? It can be from this session, but also just in general, like how do we create some of these connections between seeing our faces on the screen and having our hands buried in something? How can that become a shared experience? Because the current COVID crisis is sort of it's probably not going to disappear, but we may have a period of time where we can actually see each other, and then it might come back, but there will probably also be other reasons why we can't actually be together. So any thoughts on how we can work with this? How can we sort of become better at doing this?
Well, I really liked your invitation to tell while we're doing things. Usually we only do one thing at a time. So, or we make things and then we explain it. But it's my experience. It's also in a group very helpful if you're building something with your hands or making something, and at the same time start talking. So so you combine these two. I think it's even more powerful than building and then explaining, because then there's only this head talking a bit. When you're creating, and even while I already had made something, I started talking about, and then and I kept on playing with it while doing it, and it made more sense what I was doing, and I felt I was more engaged in what I was doing, and especially because there were people listening to me. I could talk. I could sit on myself and do this, but then nobody would hear. So there's no point in telling. And this connection through this technique, which I wouldn't like to have, but I'm very happy to have it, because I'm still connected with people, and they're willing to listen to me while I'm doing stupid stuff, and they're doing stupid stuff, and they're willing to share it with me. So that makes my life more worthwhile.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, you all.
Oh, but thank you. Yeah, and thank you for putting those words on it. I think that's really interesting. There are a lot of things that come to mind when you describe it like that. Yesterday in the session, there was this, they played this Alan Watts recording, and talking about, you know, how is this not a journey, like it's a dance, and all of that. So try to focus on the process and the, you know, the moment and the living, not the happiness that might be, or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So try to focus on what's going on here and now, which is often hard for us. Like we would often rather present that beautiful story or universe or creation once it's done, because it's a lot less vulnerable. Like it's a lot less, oh, I've had like half a year to work on this thing, so now I'm ready to show it to the world. Whereas it's a mess. Like look at this thing that I have over here, it's completely meaningless, right? And it doesn't, I can't even really capture it on camera, because I can't think my movements with, apparently I'm unable to coordinate. anyway, it is a mess. You have to take my word for it. So how do I feel safe and confident enough to share that process while it's going on? I think there's some really interesting things there to explore. Yeah. All right. I think we were actually running out of time. So maybe if there's any final comment, I'd love to hear it. You can put it in the chat. You can write it on Facebook. I'm always, for all of these events, what makes any of these play events powerful to me is that we get used to not thinking about them as an isolated event, but a series of events that really sort of helps the play community grow and invite new people in and expand it and all of that. So to me, this session and this event is just one. There's been a lot before and there will come a lot. So how do we continue to have these conversations and experiments and thoughts and sharing our feelings and dreams and all of that? And I don't think any of us sort of found the solution to that. But if at least if you're aware that like we want to do that, I want to keep talking to you guys about materials and tactility and touching and what does it mean and how do we do it as a business and such. So that's definitely one thing to like. I think there are a lot of us that would like to hear from you. How can we continue doing that? Yeah. And other than that, I think I just really want to say thank you for playing along in this experiment. I had no idea where it would go, but of course with playful people, it's always fun and it's always interesting and people always do stuff that you didn't expect. So that makes it a bit easier to be confident enough to try it out. All right. I think that's it. Unless you really want to say something, then goodbye and thank you. And
Thank you.
And if you like leave this festival and then you have an idea or something like that about this tactility touching thing, please just do write me, because I'm working like with it and on it on a continuous basis. So I love to keep talking. But otherwise, see you in the last couple of sessions. Bye.
Thank
you, Matthias. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The disco penguin says bye, and the dog, and the elephant, and all the animals, they want to play with you. Actually, this dog has a badge that says "fuck design, let's dance." I'm not sure I can explain that. All right, so what's next?